Hello, welcome back. So for this next part, we're going to be checking your understanding. So I want you to get in groups or pairs or something and look at these next two questions, 4 and 5, and try and discuss, write down your answers, see what you think. So number 4 says, why might it make sense to write a paragraph proof before writing a flowchart proof or a 2-column proof? So please pause the video, think about it, talk with your neighbor, something along those lines. Okay, so hopefully we got some good answers, good discussion going on. For the purposes of a video, obviously I can't be interacting with you. So, a sample answer could be something along the lines of, the paragraph proof is useful because it can be used as a plan for writing the other two types of proof. Right? So if you start with a paragraph proof, get your thoughts organized, you can use this as an outline, as a plan for a 2-column proof and a flowchart proof. So now I want you to try this again with number 5. Go ahead and pause the video, work with your neighbor groups, something along those lines. Number 5 says, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of each of the 3 types of proofs you have learned? So hopefully there was some good discussions, talking about the 3 different types. Again, for the purposes of the video, I will give you my opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the only right answer. Hopefully you guys had come up with some good stuff on your own. But for me, the paragraph proof is probably the easiest to read, since it's just written, what we're used to seeing, like reading a book or reading some sort of word problem in just text. But it might be difficult to see how the steps are logically connected. So there might be some sort of disconnect in reading the paragraph from the interdependence of each of those different steps. Whereas the flowchart proof shows how all the steps are logically connected, but the format can become a little bit complicated, convoluted, maybe difficult to read in those longer proofs where you get lots of different connections. And then lastly, the 2-column proof format makes the statements and reasons really easy to read. It's right in order, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's beautiful, little, nice, neat 2-column proof. However, again, the interdependence of the steps may not be clear. It may not be as obvious how one step connects to the previous one, or maybe, previous several. Okay? So, now we're going to look at the lesson 12-2 practice. So hopefully we had some good discussions. So I want you to look at these practices, 6, 7, and 8. And I'm going to prompt you to pause the video, try and work it out yourself, and then we'll come back to the video after you've attempted it. So number 6, it says, if the first statement in a flowchart proof is segment BX is the bisector of angle ABC, then which of the following should be the second statement in the proof? I've given you 4 options. I want you to pause the video, look at them, discuss, and figure out which one you think would be the most logical second statement of the proof. So, for me personally, I am a very visual person, so I like to draw things out. So the first step I would do is actually draw out what this image is saying, or what this text is saying. So it says that angle ABC is bisected by segment BX. Okay? So now that I have a visual, I can really look and see. And I know that if this is bisected, then that means that these 2 angles are going to be congruent. Okay? So I have a feeling maybe it'll have something to do with that, right? Part A says that angle ABC is congruent to angle XBC. Well, because of my image, I automatically know that doesn't make any sense, and that can't be right, because the big angle cannot be congruent to half the angle. So A is out of it. B, the measurement of angle ABX plus the measurement of angle XBC is equal to the measurement of angle ABC. Now we weren't actually told anything about the measurements, and without that next step in the proof saying that this angle is congruent to that angle, this is just my conjecture and it's not actually in the proof. So no to B. Part C says that angle ABX is congruent to angle CBX. Well, that's what we said from the very beginning, and because it is a proof, we need all of those steps written down. So I am going to guess that it's C, but just to double check, I would like to look at D to make sure. So D says that angle ABC is congruent to angle CBX, which again doesn't make any sense. So it is in fact C. So number 7, make use of structure. Which theorem or definition justifies the statement, if E is the midpoint of AF, then AE is congruent to EF? Again, I'd like you to pause the video, discuss, think about it, and try and get your answer for number 7. So for my visual learners out there, hopefully the first thing that you did was go ahead and draw the picture that they're talking about. So AF is the segment, and it says that AF is the segment, and it says that E is in the middle of AF. Okay, and then it says that AE is congruent to EF. So which theorem or definition justifies this? Well, this is your dead giveaway right here, okay? The only way we know that AE is congruent to EF is because of the definition of a midpoint. By definition, a midpoint creates two congruent segments on either side of it. It's in the middle, it cuts it in half. So the definition is midpoint. Number 8, write a flowchart proof for the following. Given segment CD bisects segment AB, and angle A is congruent to B, and then we're trying to prove that triangle AED is congruent to triangle BEC. So I would like you to pause the video at this point and try and create a flowchart proof for the following. Okay, so I've given myself a little bit extra room to write my flowchart and just put it on a new paper on my computer. Anyways, so it's the same problem, number 8, write a flowchart proof for the following. So my first step is always labeling the image. So it says that CD bisects AB, which I can't technically label anything yet, but I do have this, angle A is congruent to angle B. So that's part of my given. So now that I've labeled, I'm going to start my flowchart. So number 1, I'm going to start with my given. CD bisects segment AB. And the reason is given, which I write underneath. Now using that information, we can say that because CD bisects AB, I know that these two sides are congruent. I know that segment AE is congruent to segment BE. And how do I know that? Because the definition of bisector. Definition of a segment bisector. Okay? So I'm going to make my flowchart look the right way. Okay? Now I'm not using that information to find anything else, so I'm just going to go on to my next given, which is that angle A is congruent to angle B. And I've already labeled that in my image, and the reason is given. Okay? So again, I'm not using that information for anything to deduce any new information as I did with CD bisecting segment AB. So I'm going to move on to part 4, and if I look at my image, I can see these angles right here, and I know that they are vertical angles, and therefore congruent. So I can say that angle AED is congruent to angle BEC. And why can I say that? Because they are vertical angles. Now that I have all three of these pieces of information and I've labeled my image, I can clearly see that I'm going to be using the postulate angle, side, angle. And that is my flowchart proof. So that concludes our work in the book. I hope that this helped you understand the three different types of proofs and the different pros and cons of each, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day.